Today's lecture, we're going to be going over some biostatistics, in particular predictive values, sensitivity, and specificity. When it comes to the USMLE exam, you're going to have this classic 2x2 box, so please do not forget what goes into this. Now, if you have the known risk factor or a positive test, and you indeed do have the thing that you're testing for, that is going to be your true positive. Likewise, if you have a positive test, but you actually don't have the disease, that's known as our false positive. If you miss it, meaning you have a negative test, but you actually had the disease, that is going to be your false negative. And lastly, if you don't have the risk factor or the test is negative and the disease is also negative, meaning that it accurately noted that you don't have the condition, that is going to be your true negative. Now, I like to also label each of these boxes as A, B, C, and D, and I feel like it just helps me memorize these equations easier. We're going to break down these 4 equations with a matter of arrows, and it really simplifies things by just kind of understanding what these arrows mean, and it all is based on where the arrow starts and what boxes that it goes through. So before we get into the equations, I just want to explain that reasoning. So for instance, if I had an arrow that went like this, we know that the arrow starts in box B and it goes through both B and D. So where the arrow starts is going to be what our numerator is, and where the arrow goes through is going to be what our denominator is. So we have B over B plus D. Okay, so let's get into it and first cover sensitivity. So an easy way to remember sensitivity equations is when people are sensitive, they get brought down. So that's why we have our arrow going downward. And we know that it starts in box A. So A, B, C, D. And our arrow goes through both boxes A and C. So as this equation says, we have sensitivity is equal to A over A plus C, which equals 40 over 40 plus 10, which is 40 over 50, and that equates to a sensitivity of 80%. Okay, 1 arrow down, 3 arrows to go. Next, we're going to go into specificity. I like to remember this as if you are specific with your intentions, you get brought up in life, you tend to rise in life in your path. And so we know that this arrow starts in box D and it goes through D and B. So we have specificity is D over B plus D, and we can equate that out to D 60 over 60 plus 5, which equals 60 over 65. And if you want to check your own math, I think it comes out to about 92.3%. Okay. Now, we have the sensitivity, you get broken down, you fall down. If you're specific, and with specificity, if you're specific in your intentions, you get brought up. Now the next two are going to be positive predictive value and negative predictive value. And I like to memorize those as if I'm looking at a number line. So positive predictive value is going to be trending positively on a number line. So you have starting in box A and going through A and B. So as we see here, positive predictive value is A over A plus B. So just to work these equations out, we have 40 over 40 plus 45. 40 over plus 5, sorry. And that equals 40 over 45. And that comes out to a positive predictive value of 88.9%. And the remaining arrow is going to just be the opposite way. So you have an arrow that trends in the negative direction on a number line. And so we have box C and D. Now, we know that it's trending left, and it starts in box D and goes all the way through D and C. So we have D over D plus C, which equals 60 over 60 plus 10, which equals 60 over 70. And that comes out to a value of 85.7%. So just to recap on each of these equations, we have 4 arrows, and we have simplified down these equations that you're constantly going to get asked on the USMLE content. So sensitive people tend to fall down in life, so the arrow goes downwards from A to C. Specific people and have specific intentions tend to get brought up in life, so the arrow goes from box D to B. And then positive and negative predictive values are like number lines, so positive predictive value trends in the rightward direction and goes through box A and B. And then negative predictive value, we know that the number line trends to the left, and so it goes through box D and C. So I really hope that this helped you memorize or help you understand these 4 equations a little bit easier. If you do like it, please feel free to give me a thumbs up and subscribe for more content. Appreciate it.